All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles of GMS, and Shalom to you brothers that's pushing this truth for sincerity. I'm Karat Zab, back on another show. And this show, I'm going to be focusing on First Corinthians, the 11th chapter, where Paul speaks about the head covering of man and woman. All right. And what inspired me to do this show is, you have these Israelites that are, teaching the word of the Lord with their heads covered, which is against the scriptures. All right. And as you can see, an example on the screen of the Israelite group called, Genesis, which is a branch from the Sakari camps. Okay. So Genesis, which is led here by, priest Hakah, as you see right there in the red. Okay. So as you see on the screen, these guys are teaching. They're out on the highways and byways prophesying, but they all got their hats on their heads, teaching the word of the Lord. All right. And not only Genesis do this, but, the Sakari also. The Sakari camps also teach with their hats on, okay? Which they are going against the scriptures when they do so, okay? But, these guys do this because they don't agree with the writings of Paul, Apostle Paul, all right? And they believe that, a lot of the writings of Paul is his own opinions and not divine inspiration. But, us at GMS, we understand that the writings of Paul are divine inspiration. All right. His words are inspired by Yahweh Shah. The scriptures speak about how Yahweh Shah himself said that Paul was a chosen vessel. All right. So the Spirit was working with Paul to teach certain things. Okay. Now when you go into 1 Corinthians, the 11th chapter, Paul spoke about the head coverings. All right. Now we all understand that, during the time of, Corinth, you had all kind of, pagan customs that was going on and things like that. And Paul spoke against a lot of those things. But ultimately, when Paul was speaking about the head coverings, Paul was conveying something, more on the spiritual side, all right, which a lot of people miss. And you got guys like Genesis and Sakari. They don't understand the script. They don't understand a lot of script. The spiritual aspects of a lot of these scriptures. Okay, that's why they trying to pick and choose what they want to follow, because these guys are not spiritual. All right. And when Paul spoke about the head coverings, it was a whole spiritual message that he was conveying. Okay. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to go into 1 Corinthians 11th chapter and get understanding of what Paul was conveying. All right. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to 1 Corinthians 11. I'm going to start at verse 4. Now it reads, "Every man praying or prophesying, having his head covered, dishonoreth his head. But every woman that prayeth or prophesieth with her head uncovered, dishonoreth her head. For that is even all one as if she were shaven." Now, when you read it face value, you might think it's Paul is saying that every man prophesying or praying or prophesying with his head covered dishonoreth his own head, or likewise with the woman dishonoring her own head. But that's not what it's talking about. Okay, what is Paul saying? Let's jump up to verse 3. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 3. "But I would have you know that the head of every man is Hamashiach. And the head of the woman is the man. And the head of Hamashiach is the Most High. So what Paul here is establishing the authority, all right? The authority in the churches. And he's saying, look, the head of every man is Hamashiach. All right? And the head of every man is Hamashiach, Yahweh Shai. And the head of the woman is the man. And the head of Hamashiach is the Most High. Okay? Meaning the heads of authority or the headship. All right? So when Paul is saying, so now when you jump to verse 4, every man praying or prophesying, having his head covered, his physical head covered, he dishonoreth his head. He dishonoreth his spiritual head, all right? Or his head of authority, which is Yahweh Shai, Hamashiach. Okay? So when you praying or prophesying for a man, if a man is praying or prophesying with his physical head covered, he dishonoreth his head of authority, which is Yahweh Shai. Okay? You are going against the authority of how this, the spirit is working in the churches. So these guys that are out there on highways and byways teaching with their heads covered, with their hats on, they're dishonoring Yahweh Shai, who is the head of authority over them. All right? And what you got to understand is Yahweh Shai being our head of authority, and he is also our mediator. Let's get that real quick. This is 1 Corinthians, Salakia. This is 1 Timothy's. This is 1 Timothy's chapter 2, verse 5, and it reads, "For there is one God and one mediator between the Most High and man, the man Yahweh Shai Hamashiach." Right, so there's one God and one mediator between the Most High and man. So Yahweh Shai, he is our mediator. He is the one that mediates for us or make intercession for us to the Most High. We got to go through Yahweh Shai to get to the Most High. All right? So, and Yahweh Shai is the head of our authority. So when you are covering your head, it's like you're blocking that mediation to the Most High. All right? And you're dishonoring the order that is set up of going through Yahweh Shai to get to the Most High. So these guys that are out there teaching with their hats on, they don't even understand how detrimental that is to teach with your hat on, because all your prayers and your worship towards Yahweh Shai and the Most High, you're dishonoring that, okay? And you're blocking your mediation to get to the Most High by teaching with your heads covered, dishonoring your head of authority, which is Yahweh Shai, okay? Because our physical heads is a spiritual representation of Yahweh Shai himself. Let's get some scriptures. Let's go to Romans chapter 12, verse 5. Romans 12, 4 and 5. It says, "For as we have many members in one body, and all members have not the same office, so we, being many, are one body in Hamashiach, and every one member one of another." Right. So us members of the church, we represent the body of Yahweh Shai. Okay? We represent his body. So if we represent his body, the head of the body is Yahweh Shai himself. Let's go to Colossians chapter 1. Bear with me. This is Colossians chapter 1, verse 18, and it reads, Colossians 1:18. And he is the head of the body, Yahushua, Hamashiach. All right. Yahushua is the head of the body. And we, members of the church, we represent the body. So pretty much, example I could use, from the feet to the neck, and Yahushua is the head figure. Okay? He's the head figure, which also represents, him being the head of authority. So it says, and he is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he might have the preeminence. That's right. So Yahushua, he is the head figure, all right, of the church, and the head of authority. So our physical heads that we have on our bodies is a representation of, Yahushua being the head, as well as he's the head of the church that we, us being the members of his body. So let's go back to 1 Corinthians 11:4. And it says, every man praying or prophesying, having his head covered. Yeah, so having his physical head covered, as you see with these Israelites, the Genesis, the Sakari, they teach with their fitted hats on. They teach with their skelly hats on, whatever. So every man praying or prophesying, having his head covered, dishonoreth his head. Yeah, dishonors his spiritual head, or his head of authority, which is Yahushua. So you're dishonoring Yahushua by covering your head when you praying or prophesying. All right. And by and Yahushua being our mediator, as we read in 1 Timothy's, you're dishonoring, the setup. Okay, you're dishonoring the whole setup, and Yahushua being our gateway to get into the Most High. And it's like you're covering that. Okay? So these guys are not spiritual. They don't understand the spiritual aspects of the scriptures. Okay? And all throughout the scriptures, the Most High is always using symbolisms. All right? The scriptures also speak about how our prayers pierce the clouds. Okay? And we know what? Our spirit dwells in our heads, man. So we got to have the top, our heads open. All right. That we have to have our heads exposed. The tops of our head, the crown of our heads exposed, man, because that's our Yahushua, our mediation, man, to get into the Most High, which these guys don't understand. So, let's continue. Verse 5, it reads, but every woman that prayeth or prophesieth with her head uncovered dishonoreth her head. Right, so every woman that prayeth or prophesieth with her physical head uncovered, she dishonoreth her head, which is the man. Okay? So a woman, she's supposed to have her head covered, because her head covering is a representation of her being under the authority of a man. All right? So the woman's supposed to have her head covered when she prays, because her head covering represents her following the setup, the order of the Most High over Yahushua, Yahushua over man, and man over the woman. Okay? So a woman's head covering her head, she is a woman covering her head is a representation of her being under the authority of man. All right? So let's read it again. But every woman that prayeth or prophesieth with her head uncovered dishonoreth her head. Yeah, so you dishonoring you're dishonoring man when you praying without your head covered. Okay? Because when you praying without your head covered, that's like you saying, yeah, you're pretty much, that's a woman saying, look, she don't have to go through the order or the setup of, she don't have to go through how the Most High set things up. All right? She can go above the man. She can go above Hamashiach and straight to the Most High. No, that's not how it worked. All right? So a woman's supposed to have her head covered. And all throughout the scriptures, women cover, have their heads covering, man. When, before they go through, to the most, praying and things like that. And there's many examples of, that's a part of our custom in Israel. Women would have their heads covered. It wasn't a custom in Israel for men to do that. So it says, but if she be, Salakia, where we at? Verse 6. For if a woman be not covered, verse 5, let's read for verse 5 again. But every woman that prayeth, or matter of fact, before we finish that, let's get a precept. Let's go to Ephesians chapter 5, verse 23. So this is Ephesians chapter 5, verse 23, and it read, I start from verse 22. It says, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands, as unto the Lord. See? So, and this is how the most, you see how Yahweh Shai deal with men is different than how he deals with the women. Okay? How he deal with women is important for them to submit themselves unto their husband. Or even if they don't have their husband, you still supposed to submit yourself to the order of how the Most High set things up, because man is always over the women in general. So it says, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands, as unto the Lord, for the husband is the head of the wife, the head of authority. All right, as we read in 1 Corinthians 11 and 3. So it says, for the husband is the head of the wife, even as Hamashiach is the head of the church. Right. So Hamashiach is the head of authority over the church. Okay. And he, so he is the head figure of the body. We make up the body, and Yahweh Shai is the head. All right. And our physical heads is also a representation of the head of authority that's over us. So, verse 24, therefore, as the church is subjected unto Hamashiach, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. See, there you go. So, when you read 1 Corinthians 11, Paul is establishing that authority, all right? The setup of how Most High wants things. Let's go back to 1 Corinthians 11, verse 5. But every woman that prayeth or prophesieth with her head uncovered dishonoreth her head. Dishonoreth the order the Most High set up, which is the man being over them. It says, for that is even all one as if she was shaven. Right. So her praying or prophesying with her head uncovered is as if she was shaven, and if a woman was shaven, that was a shameful thing. All right. She was looked down upon, because what? The glory of a woman is her hair. So if a woman you see that's shaven, that is a shame unto her. She'll look down upon. Same thing if she was praying or prophesying without her head covered. She'll look down upon. Shame. That's a shame unto her. All right. It's not like these women today who, they get all these short haircuts and hairstyles, where that's the normal. Back in the ancient world, that would be a shameful look upon a woman. All right, for her to have her head shaven or cut low, that'll be a shame unto her. So verse 7, for a man indeed ought not to cover his head, for as much as he is the image and glory of the Most High. Right, so a man indeed not to cover his head, for as much as he is the image and glory of the Most High. Yeah, and when you read Genesis, the Most High, what? He made man in his images. The powers, the Most High had the angels make man in his image, in his likeness. All right? And gave man order. Just how the Most High is righteous, the angels is righteous, okay? Man is in that same likeness. And the Most High gave man, dominion over, the creation. So after, the Most High, Yahweh Shai, and man is the head of everything else on earth. All right? And it says, so for as much as he is the image, okay, and glory of the Most High, the image and glory of the Most High, okay? And we know that, look, the scriptures, the Most High is a man of war. The scriptures speak about how the Most High is the Heavenly Father, okay? And, we as men, we are in the likeness of the Most High. It didn't say that, ain't no scriptures say that the Most High is a woman, all right? And women don't look like, and women coming after that looking like the Most High woman. No. The Most High is a man. It describes the Most High as a man. Okay? And when you read the visions of the Most High, as in Daniel's, I believe the 9th chapter, what did Daniel say? He saw the Most High, and his hair was as the pure wool. When he seen the image of the vision of the Most High didn't have a hat on his head. He didn't say that the Most High had a baseball cap sitting on his throne. He said that his head was as the pure wool. So he's in the image, the vision, he saw the head of the Most High. When John the Revelator saw the vision of Yahweh Shai, it speaks about the heads of his head, white and wool. He didn't have a baseball cap on his head. All right? But you got these guys calling themselves Israelites and leaders and teachers going out there preaching and, praying to the Most High, Yahweh Shai, with their heads covered, man. So it reads, what verse I'm at? Okay, bear with me. Verse 7, for a man indeed ought not to cover his head, for as much as he is the image and glory of the Most High, but the woman is the glory of the man. Yeah, but the woman is the glory of the man. Okay? Because the Most High made woman, let's read verse 8. For the man is not of the woman, but the woman of the man. Neither was the man created for the woman, but the woman for the man. Yeah, the woman was created for the glory of the man, okay? To be a helpmate unto the man, to serve the man. All right? And the man was made in the image and glory of the Most High. All right? For man to serve the Most High in his likeness, following his order that's set up, and for man to have the dominion over everything else on earth. So read one more verse 10, we finish here. And it reads, for this cause ought the woman to have power on her head because of the angels. Right. So what it's saying is, let's read it again. It says, "For this cause ought the woman to have power," meaning to follow that authority and cover her head. So it says, "For this cause ought the woman to have power on her head because of the angels." And it says that because of the angel, because what? The angels are watching. All right, the angels are watching everything that's going on. Okay, it speaks about the eyes of the Lord upon the sinful kingdom. The angels is always watching. All right, so you don't want to get a bad report. The angels give back a bad report to the Most High. Yeah, so that's the whole spiritual aspect of the head coverings when Paul was speaking. All right, Paul was speaking of the covering of the physical head had a spiritual meaning to it. All right, which was a representation of our heads of authority. Okay, so hope you brothers understood, and I'm gonna say all praises, honor, and glory due to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem, Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles of GMS, and shalom to the elect. Shalom.